It's amazing how time sort of expands when you're not stressed and how it contracts when
Yeah.
you are stressed. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
it's stressful morning, then it just feels like the
Mm-hmm.
time is flying and it's
Yeah.
wild, but like that's part of like
Mm-hmm.
what having an organized home and functional systems that work for you and your family do for you is that it
Yeah.
kind of allows you to relax and it expands time. And before you know it, then sometimes you're out of the door and it's early and you have extra time. And it's just, I think that there's, it's just an amazing process. And now that I have a baby, I have a 7 month old,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much more to get ready to get out of the house in the morning. And I'm always looking for new ways to kind of just like hack it and figure out
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what are all the things I can do the night before so that I don't have 50 things that I have to do in a very specific order the next
Yeah.
morning. And sometimes I get out the door and I get in the car and I'm like, oh God, I feel like I've like lived a whole life.
Yeah. Welcome to Heart Parents. Let's connect with our kids and learn together. I'm Carrie. I was a former teacher and speech therapist. I'm also a parent of 2 spirited, gifted, highly sensitive kids. I was quickly brought to my knees as a parent when I thought that I would see a rosy lens version of parenting just as they present on Instagram, but I quickly learned that's not real life. I will provide real life experiences and transform them into moments for connections and change for you to use in your house. Hi there, and welcome back to Heart Parents. I'm Carrie, and I'm here with a very sweet special guest today, Juliana Strickland, who is an owner, a CEO of a successful organizing company called Space Camp, which I love the name. You're going to have to tell me what that comes from in a
Thank
second.
you. Sure.
Juliana co-created and hosted a successful streaming cooking show, blending her love of film and food, which I found to be a fascinating tip with your background. And then a chance request from a friend led Juliana to discover her love for home organization and improving lives by bringing peace, beauty, and functionality to people's spaces. Juliana, it's been so fun to get to know you as we've been chatting here and there. And I loved when you were chatting, you mentioned you have this background with fluid, flexible mindsets with organizing spaces. That's
Hmm.
that's the term I was bringing to the picture. I loved it when you were telling me about it. But is there anything that I missed in your background about
I mean, not nothing big, nothing big.
that?
That pretty much covers it. So,
Okay, cool. And so would you agree with the fluid, flexible mindset mentality piece
oh,
that I was thinking with organizing? Those were keywords. I was like, these, I love these pieces that when you describe your product and your company, it's really cool.
absolutely. Yeah, I think so many people get really stuck when they're like, I want to get organized, but then they're like, I have to fit inside this very specific box. I have to do it this specific way, and then they overthink it, and then they never do anything, and then it, you live your life and you keep just not functioning properly in your home. And if you kind of
Mhm.
like let go of that perfection, if you find a little bit of flow, if you realize that nothing is ever perfect and nothing is ever set in stone because life is constantly changing, then
Yeah.
you can sort of start the process of getting organized and loving your home again and finding systems that actually function for you in
Mm.
such a more, just like a way more fun and
Yeah.
and what's the right word I'm thinking of? Just like a
Mm.
way more, sorry,
Like
my brain is not working. I have
cohesive,
a
like I'm trying to
just
think
a way
of,
that's going to stick, right? It's sort of
yeah.
like diet culture. And then now we've
Hmm.
moved on, I grew up in the 80s and 90s and it was like
Yeah.
skinny, low fat everything. And now we've realized that, oh, you know what? You have to feed your body. Intuitive eating is way more of a fad. You can't just
Hmm.
like starve yourself and try to fit into this box. That's just not how we work as animals. And
Yeah.
organizing is the same thing. So
Okay.
we don't need to do everything perfectly to be able to enjoy our homes. We don't have to fit into a box. You don't have to have all of your pantry goods in perfect little plastic boxes all labeled. You can if you want, if that works for you, but that not every system
Mhm.
works for every single person, and we're all very different. And that is my philosophy when it comes to helping people get organized.
I love that so much. I feel like there's such a mindful piece there. Do you end up doing a lot of this counseling piece when you're working with families and trying to organize a busy family home?
Oh my gosh, yes. I always say that organizing is half therapy and half interior
Mm,
design. And maybe like a little smidge of like puzzling and problem solving in there as well. So many people, I would say most people who are successful with working with us and feel like they make major changes in their lives come to us when they have a problem. And it's usually it's usually there's some sort of emotional problem tied in
mm-hmm,
there, right? So it's
mm-hmm,
like, I'm frustrated that I can't get out the door in time. I am angry when I go to get dressed in the morning because I can't find anything that fits me properly. I am mad
yeah,
at my husband because he leaves his stuff all over the kitchen table. I am mad at my kids because they don't clean up their playroom. Like there's usually an emotional element there. And
mm,
that's what gets people frustrated enough that they reach out because things have to get bad enough for you to make a change, and it's not an easy change to make because it is it costs time, it costs money, it costs attention. It can
mm,
be difficult to confront the shame and the fear that come along with being like, well, what's wrong with me that I can't keep my home organized, or what's wrong with me that I'm doing it wrong? Like, I should be able to do this. I should be able to, be the perfect parent and the perfect spouse and all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot sort of wrapped up into that. And
mm,
we help unravel that. And the first step is looking at the problem that you have. So if you want to call an organizer, or you want to call a friend to help, or you read an organizing book or whatever it is,
mm-hmm,
and it's great to start with a problem.
mm.
So, like you and I were talking about getting out the door on time
Yes,
and
I was gonna
knowing
say
you
that.
have what you need, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, okay, if you keep noticing in your family that you guys are always rushing out the door a few minutes late, like barely
Mhm,
making it to school on time in the mornings, okay, well, maybe there's a way we can change that, and let's work backwards. What's the root of the problem? Well, maybe the root of the problem is you just don't have anywhere to put the things you need in the morning.
mm,
So you don't have a hook to hang the backpack. You don't have
mm,
a clean surface to put your keys. So then
mm.
you're always losing your keys. A lot
Yeah.
of these sort of complicated, stressful situations, you can work backwards to the root and say like, oh, if I just have a bowl on a clean surface that has my keys in it and a hook with a backpack, and I get into the habit of packing the backpack before we go to bed,
Mhm,
then we can just get out the door easily in the morning after everyone's eaten breakfast and all of that, and we're not going to be late anymore. So there we
mm.
help sort of work through all those kinds of things, which feel like therapy because then and anyway, so it's a lot of emotions, and we have a lot of emotions attached to our stuff and attached to our homes, and there's a lot to work through. It's not just as simple as just putting your things in a box. So
I love that because, yeah, getting out of the house in the morning is a struggle for us every
mm,
morning on school mornings, especially summer now. It's like night and day because I have the time and I can look for everything.
yeah.
But yeah, our mudroom it's a little bit of a chaos zone right now. So I really appreciate this time because it sounds like I need a little Juliana in my life right now to
Well,
just
something
help
I
us.
read, you and I were talking about executive functioning, and I was
Yeah.
reading a very cool organizing book recently.
Yeah.
And it was, what is it called? I forget what it's called, but it's essentially for people who are neurodivergent,
Oh.
and like how to clean house when you're drowning, I think is what it was called. And it was so beautiful, and I feel like it was so different from other organizing books that I've read,
Yeah.
because it really outlined how much executive functioning goes in our day-to-day basic lives. Like what you were just saying is like how to get out of the house in the morning. You probably have
Mhm.
to do 50 tasks
Yeah.
before you get out of the house, and you have to do them in a pretty specific order, right? Like you can't just
Yeah.
wake up and I mean, I guess you could wake up and put your shoes on first and then go about your day, but you probably don't want to, right? So
Yeah.
your brain is, I think we discount
Mm.
how much work all of these tiny little tasks that are all threaded together to, let's say, get out of the house in the morning are, and we feel like it should be easy, but it's not. And I think
Yeah.
actually naming it and being like, yeah, there's a lot that we have to do to
Mm-hmm.
not only get yourself ready, but help everyone else in your family get ready. And if you have kids, get them ready. If you have dogs, make sure they have what they need, like all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There's so much you have to do in a specific order that it's hard. And I think even just naming that and being like, yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And that sort of gives you the grace to feel like, okay, it's not unusual that I'm frustrated or exhausted by this process, but what can we do to simplify it? What can we do to make it easier on ourselves? What can we do ahead of time so I have
Mm-hmm.
fewer decisions to make in a row in the morning?
Yeah.
And yeah, just being easier on ourselves, because I think we expect ourselves to be able to do so much, and maybe we're not built to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing when we give ourselves a little bit of validation of it can be hard in the morning, or if we can't find the perfect coat that my daughter needs, like I can get in my head and get
Mhm.
nervous and that like she's gonna explode if she doesn't have her coat, or we're gonna make it to school late and just letting it go. We
Mhm.
might be to school late and then you can focus
Yeah.
and find your stuff. Yeah.
Oh, totally. It's amazing how time sort of expands when you're not stressed and how it contracts when
Yeah.
you are stressed. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if
Yeah.
it's stressful morning, then it just feels like the
Hmm.
time is flying and it's
Yeah.
wild, but like that's part of like what
Hmm.
having an organized home and functional systems that work for you and your family do for you, is that it
Yeah.
kind of allows you to relax and it expands time. And before you know it, then sometimes you're out of the door and it's early and you have extra time. And it's just, I think that there's it's just an amazing process. And now that I have a baby, I have a 7 month old,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so much more to get ready to get out of the house in the morning. And I'm always looking for new ways to kind of just like hack it and figure out
Hmm.
like, okay, what are all the things I can do the night before so that I don't have 50 things that I have to do in a very specific order the next
Yeah.
morning. And because sometimes I get out the door and I get in the car and I'm like, oh God, I feel like I've like lived a whole life.
Yeah. In an
It's only been
hour.
2 hours. Yeah, but like I feel like I need a
Yeah.
vacation. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're trying to simplify that stuff as much as
Yeah.
possible and make it easier for families to, yeah,
Yeah.
to live their lives.
I love, as you mentioned, your little baby. I was thinking, man, in that era, the 7 month old, they're changing so quickly
Yeah.
that we would just get something organized. Like, okay, we have the perfect organized space. And then we'd have to switch out all of the toys again.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that there's this flexibility of understanding
Hmm.
that once you're organized, you're not set for life. Like,
Yeah. Correct.
can you tell me more
Yeah,
about that?
absolutely. I think okay, working backwards a little bit, I think there is like a comfort and a joy, especially for people who like organization, to think
Hmm.
that like once you do something, it's set, right?
Right.
And I think there's a grief in realizing that that's just not how life works, right? Everything's always
Hmm.
changing, it's always moving. And so it's easy to then be like, well, if my baby's changing all the time, why would I even organize anything? Because like I'm going to just have to change it tomorrow. I'm just going to have to change it in a week or a month. So that's where if you have broad categories, and
Yeah.
so for example, let's talk about toys, what you had said. So I try to keep it very minimal in my house.
Hmm.
And that's not for everyone. And that's not saying that that's how you have to do it or anyone else has to
Hmm.
do it. But for me,
Yeah.
what works is I have a couple sort of flexible bins, and I know that they're toy bins.
Hmm.
And when it's full, it's full. And so the stuff that he's sort of currently playing on right now and playing with right now in his playpen it's like one basket that's probably like 10 inches by 10 inches,
Hmm.
and what fits in there is what he has. And
Hmm.
if I find that he grows out of something and or isn't interested in something else anymore, I'll take it out and I'll replace it with something else. Or maybe I
Hmm.
won't, and maybe he'll have fewer things to play with. And I think just sort of being like, okay, we know that the things in this bin are age appropriate toys, and that what the contents of it are going to shift and change as he grows. But the actual
Hmm.
receptacle and the category of what the receptacle is going to stay the same for a while
Hmm.
until we need a new one, right?
Okay.
So then it's less. stressful. And we do the same thing, for example, with his clothes. So he has
Mm-hmm.
his top drawer under, like he has diapers in the top drawer, and then the next one is clothes that he's currently fitting in. And there's pants, tops, sleepers, rompers,
Mm-hmm.
shorts, stuff like that. Those categories stay the same, right? And they're all labeled, but the clothes that they're filled
Yeah.
with clothes that currently fit him. And so if I pull something out and realize it doesn't fit him right now, I have a basket that says outgrown clothes. I just throw it in there, deal with
Mm-hmm.
it later. And then if I get something new for him and I'm like, oh, I think this might fit him, it goes into the category of pants, shirts, whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about what size it is because if it currently fits him, it currently fits him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, I'm filtering through things, but the categories themselves stay the same. It's the same concept in a pantry, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have a breakfast bin, maybe you have a baking bin. You run out of flour, you put more flour in there. You run out of different things. Oh, you're trying a new ingredient. It fits in within this category. You can store it there. So I think sort of thinking of the framework of categories that you'll always have in your life, but allowing what's living in there to be flexible will sort of expand your consciousness with regard to how to stay organized and will allow you to not feel the stress of like perfection.
Yeah.
uh if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, I think so. Yeah, just having just the variations and just being ready. You have the space, you have the
Mhm.
organizer, and then you modify it to each era. Because yeah, I do have a question. I think I'm in the
I see
era.
your face and you're like,
I'm like,
I
I'm
don't
like,
know, I need to know
well,
more.
yes, because I definitely when my babies were babies, which they're
Mhm.
now giant babies, they are bigger babies. They did not get to choose what stayed and what went, so it was so much easier. But now I
Yes,
feel
yes.
like I have this giant closet that my husband just built shelves for, and I was like, look at
Hmm.
this organizing paradise. But
Yeah.
it has slowly slipped from mom's extra pantry area that I needed into kids extra toy zone. So
No, no,
yeah, when
no.
they
Okay.
start to become opinionated and they're
Yeah.
like pack rats, right? Like,
Yeah.
mom, I colored this for 5 minutes and I need this for the rest of my life. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot throw this away. So, do you have any tips for moms like me?
Absolutely. And I will start by saying that it is not easy. And like kudos to you for navigating this situation elegantly and kindly and empathetically because kids do get every kid is different. Like we have
Mhm.
some kids who are, clients and they're happy to get rid of lots of things and they don't need a
Yeah.
lot. And then we have other kids who want to look through every single tiny stone, rock, little plastic
Hmm.
thing, little piece of paper that they
Yeah.
scribbled on. Like
Yeah.
everything has to be considered and thought through. And they might want to keep a lot more than what I think is appropriate, but I
Hmm.
have to respect what's important to them. And they're a person and they have their own preferences and just like adults do, and that's important to
Yeah.
consider. So there's a few things. Number one, I think setting boundaries is great. So
Mhm.
maybe we need to reclaim your pantry space for you and say like toys don't go here, but here are other spaces where toys can go. They can go in your room, they can go in a
Mhm.
playroom or
Mhm.
a cabinet in the
Yeah.
living room. I think having
Yeah.
boundaries is very very helpful for
Mhm.
organization, especially with people who tend to want to keep a lot of things, because then it's like, great, if you have this
Mm.
much space to keep your toys, you have to make
Yeah.
some decisions about what you want to keep. And then once you have a boundary, then you're like, oh, well, if it's between this and this can go. These are more important to
Mm.
me. When there are no
Okay.
boundaries, then kids who are pack rats will want to just keep everything, right? So
Mhm.
that's one thing that can be helpful where it's like, okay, like all of your Legos need to fit into this area,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So can you choose the things that you're wanting to give to other kids who don't have toys or donate
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
you want to phrase it as. And then often they'll get in line or if they
Mhm.
don't, they may have, it's an uncomfortable feeling to have to get rid of something, but it's also a really important skill in
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
because we all go through loss, where your kids just went out of school, right? They just got into
Mhm.
summer vacation, like ending a
Mm.
grade and getting ready to start a new grade is a
Yeah.
loss. And you
Yeah.
have to kind of grieve the loss of like, oh, I'm not going to be with that teacher anymore. I might not be with
Mm-hmm.
those same friends. I won't be in the same classroom.
Yeah.
It's a part of life. And I think teaching kids as soon as you can to let go
Mm-hmm.
of certain things. It's okay that if this was your favorite toy last year, but you don't care about it anymore this year, it's
Yep.
okay to feel sad about that, but it's also okay to let it go
Mm-hmm.
and pass it on to someone else that might use it. That's a normal part of life. It's a normal part of growing, and
Mm-hmm.
get them used to feeling the feelings of
Yeah.
letting go of things, because if they don't do that, they'll become an adult who can't get rid of anything. And
Yeah.
then they're going to have a much bigger problem when they
Yeah.
need, when it's not just their toys or their clothes, but it's also things they need to use to function in the world. So,
Mm-hmm.
kitchen stuff, food, things in their car, work papers,
Yep.
mementos. I see so many adults that I think weren't given the support they needed as children
Mm.
to learn how to let go of things that they don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Or this is something you and I spoke about yesterday when we talked, was I see a lot of kids that are ready to get rid of things, and
Mm.
they'll choose a toy that they want to donate, and then their parents will jump in and be like, well, you can't get rid of that. Why are you getting rid of that? I gave that to you, or your grandma gave that to you. And then they make the kid feel bad, and they
Eek.
might not even mean to, but it's, we all have attachment to things. And then the kid's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to. And then they're afraid, like there's so many layers of emotion that go into all of
Mm-hmm.
this. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that, yeah, giving boundaries is great. And giving them the space to sort of think through what
Mm-hmm.
they want to keep, what they're ready to let go of. Another great solution is storage. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a garage or a basement or an attic, and you can say, you
Mm-hmm.
know what, we don't have to get rid of it, but we're just going to swap a few things out so that we have a little more clear space in our home. And so things feel a little bit new and fresh. I think toy rotation is incredibly useful and helpful. A
Yeah.
lot of people swear by it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, maybe you only keep a couple bins of toys in the house, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything else is stored elsewhere. And what's crazy is a lot of times your kids will fully forget about what's stored away. And then later you can go make some decisions. Like if there was something
Yeah.
broken that you wanted to get rid of,
Yep.
if you realize they haven't asked for it in a year and it's just taking up space in your garage, you might be fine to donate it. And
Yeah.
so toy rotation is super great. It makes things feel really new and fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's sort of what
Mm-hmm.
we tend to
That's
do. And
helpful.
also knowing that categories are going to change, right? Like kids might get into art more, so they might need different kinds of storage for art supplies, and
Oh
maybe
yeah.
some of the toys can go.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're really into Legos and you don't need to limit them to one bin of Legos, but then maybe it's like, okay, train set can go, or whatever, and we can
Mm-hmm.
add another system for organizing Legos, and that's going to be your main thing you play with. So I think it's just
Yeah.
keeping like a flexible mindset, communication, holding space for their feelings about it and your own
Yeah.
feelings about it, because like, if it was something that they loved playing with when they were really little,
Yeah.
and you see that they want to donate it, that might like make you want to die inside. But I think
You
it's
sneak
best to
that
kind of
one
like, yeah,
to the
you're like,
back
well,
of your
let
closet.
them keep that. Yeah. But not shaming
Sure.
them for it.
No,
I think
no.
that's and I
Yeah.
think I see you getting that, but I see it happen a lot, and it makes me
Hmm.
sad because
Wow.
it's like projecting
Interesting.
your own grief onto your kids, and like they have enough that they're worrying about. So
Yeah. I
we
think
don't
you
really
could
want to do that.
you could even like vocalize your own feelings like, wow, that was a really special toy. And I can tell like your energy is telling me you're ready to move on from it. And I
Hmm.
love what a big kid you are that you're able to do that.
Hmm.
So, like, releasing some of your pain with it, maybe
Totally.
like
I think
verbalizing
that's really
that.
smart.
Yeah.
That's really kind. Yeah, you don't have to like keep it.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep it hidden. But I just think like if
Yeah,
you're
for
feeling
sure.
upset or angry, because
Hmm.
like gifting is a very touchy subject for lots of people. I don't know if you feel
Mm.
this way, but a lot of people, for example, will be, let's say, going to
Oh.
someone's closet and they'll have a dress, and they'll be like, you can tell that they don't like it. Like they don't like the energy of it. It doesn't look
Um,
good on them. They don't really want to see it every day. Maybe it reminds them of a bad memory or something, and I'm like, let's get this out of here. Like, you don't need this. You don't need to be seeing this every day. And they're like, but it was my grandmother's and I have to keep it. And I'm like, okay, well, let's
Mm,
unpack that. Like,
yeah.
if there's meaning there and you want to keep it, we could potentially put it in a memento box. It doesn't have to stay in your
Hmm.
closet.
Hmm.
But also, just because someone important to you gave you something, it doesn't that item is not them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have to keep every single thing that came from a special person in your life out of guilt, out of fear, out of shame, out of
Yeah.
like trying to cling on to everything. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of magic in letting go of that stuff. Like it
Hmm.
literally like releases the energy, and it it's I've done a good amount of organizing for people who've gone through traumatic experiences
Mm-hmm.
and like lost a spouse or a child,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm. Wow.
going through their things
Oof.
has so much power and
Yeah.
so much healing opportunity. And
Hmm.
it's the same with everyday stuff. It's hard to
Hmm.
watch I can't believe that my son is already 7 months old, and like
Hmm.
he'll never fit into his tiny newborn clothes
Yeah.
anymore. And like
Yeah.
he's interested in different things. Like there's a lot of loss there.
Hmm.
And I think that organizing makes us confront that loss. And that's why so many people are afraid of it and that they ignore it.
Yeah.
So I'm here to be like, let's embrace it, let's use it,
Hmm.
let's work through it. We'll all be better for it and we'll enjoy our home so much more.
Yes, I love that so much. And you have helped empower me to grab some masking tape out of the closet and tape mom's area in the downstairs pantry. They get their own
Mm-hmm.
little part. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
boundaries really do help. We have a Lego area where we confine to my son, like, you get these shelves because you don't like to
Mm-hmm.
pull your Legos apart. This is your future, Juliana. No, just kidding.
Oh, it
You don't want
is.
to
I
pull
know.
these Legos
Yeah.
apart. So this is your shelf where you get to show
Yeah.
them
Your
off.
display self.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Love
So I
it.
love that. I'm definitely going to grab the masking tape and designate their area. But yeah, and it's true. It does help them to get rid of the pieces that we no longer need or don't serve us. I love that.
Absolutely. And the
Healing.
boundary thing is so interesting that you say that too, because when we do consultations, sometimes we will go into someone's house and let's say it's like a 3 bedroom house, and they'll walk us through and they'll be like, okay, so this is my daughter's room. It's full of toys, right? And then they're like, this is my son's room. It's full of toys. Then the living room full of toys, the
Yeah.
dining room full of toys, the kid, like, and I'm like, wait,
Hmm.
so the kids have 2/3 of the house that they have claimed as their own, and the parents have 1/3. That's a problem. Like, just mathematically, that's
Yeah.
an issue. It's
Yeah.
not an even split. Not that it has to be perfectly even, but like there need to be boundaries of like where the kid stuff can go, where the adult stuff can go. I'm sure the kids wouldn't like it if you like threw your clothes or your work papers or your
Yeah.
pantry items or whatever sort of belongs to you all over their space. They
Yeah.
shouldn't do it to yours either, because
Yes.
you're a person and you exist not just to parent them, but also to live your life and to do the things that
Hmm.
you need to do for yourself and for the family and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. And like, you need your space. And I'm always trying to empower adults to reclaim their space and be like, we need
Yes.
a living room where maybe there can be a basket of toys when the kids are in here, but
Hmm.
I would love for it to be able to be tucked away and for it to be an adult zone, because the kids don't get to, because then they
Yeah.
walk through the house and they visually feel like, oh, this is
It's
my
all
house.
mine.
It's all
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
And then my parents' time is all mine and my parents' bodies are all mine. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a healthy way to run a
Mhm.
family, and I don't think it's good for parents, and I think it makes
Yeah.
them lose their identity a little bit. And
Yes.
I am not a fan of that, and so we have kids toys in 2 places right now, and I don't want it to spread beyond that. We'll see. Check up with
That's
me in a year and we'll see if
yeah.
that's true or not. But
Yeah, you can keep it going. We're lucky enough to have a basement in our house, and I
oh
got to
yeah.
the point a couple years ago where I was like, no toys on the main floor, no toys in your bedroom, just all, because we're a 1 story. I was like, all toys are in the basement.
Mhm.
And sometimes if my daughter brings a box up while I'm cooking, she has to pack it back up and take it back down.
Brilliant.
So it's amazing because it does feel so calming to me to not
Uh-huh.
like move through the toys to get to sit and read a book when they go to bed. Or you can
Yeah.
put you can take your mom hat off, put your
Hmm.
I'm a woman, I'm a wife, whatever
Yeah.
hat you want on when they're in bed. And
You
it's your
already are
time.
doing so many things right. Truly. Like
You.
I meet very few parents that are
Mm,
at, without having gone through like the organizational
yeah.
process with a professional who are doing what you're doing.
Oh, that's
And
good.
it's so important. And for creativity too, I'm sure that it's so nice for your daughter to bring her box of toys up and like spread out on a clear surface and enjoy that
Yeah,
versus,
that's true.
trying to make space on an already cluttered surface. Like I'm sure it feels
Hmm.
so much better for both of you.
Yeah. And she can find the pieces too, right? Because they're in the bin. It's
Mhm.
not like, Mom, where's Barbie's crown? So, yeah, which we did have the other day as well. But most of the time they're in the bin.
I mean, a little bit of that's unavoidable. It's
Sure.
just life,
It's life.
but yeah.
Yeah. We recently redid their bathroom and
Hmm.
their cabinets and everything, and it was this beautiful situation. I was so excited. So I was like, you do not get to use the drawers yet because they were like, I don't remember, 2 and maybe 5 when we first redid it. But now they're
Hmm.
6 and they're 9. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready to have them use their drawers. I
Okay.
think they're ready to have the soft close. Do you have any tips for combining? So I have a 6 and a 9-year-old and their boy and girl, combining them into their bathroom, and any tips for organizing that space? It's a pretty small
Absolutely.
area.
Totally. So I think the first tip is to minimize products as much as possible. So if there's
Hmm.
things that they can share that they feel
Okay.
comfortable sharing, so things like toothpaste, lotion, sunscreen,
Hmm.
basic things like that.
Right.
Just to have one of each of those is great because the
Yeah.
amount we often people will come to us with a messy bathroom and they'll be like, oh, I need to organize it. And once we take everything out, we realize there's 7 sunscreens and 10
Yeah.
shampoos, and
Yeah.
there's just too much of certain things, or there's a lot of back stock that people didn't realize they had. So,
Hmm.
as much as you can sort of consolidate basic everyday things and have them share those things, and maybe like they have a shared drawer of those kinds of things, that's great. Then I would give them each their own space. And depending on what you have, like maybe they each get a half of a drawer, or maybe they each get their own drawer, depending on the layout. And
Hmm.
you can put some organizers in those. I like little,
Hmm.
you know, acrylic or plastic or metal organizer,
Yeah.
something that you can wipe clean to kind of
Hmm.
segment the space, especially if they have little things like hair bands or clips or
Hmm.
combs, things like that. And then
Yep.
try to put things by category in the little organizers. And
Hmm.
then don't let them go beyond that. So let's say your
Hmm.
daughter has hair accessories she likes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you give a boundary and she has a little bin that fits in her drawer or a little box or something. And if she gets more than that, then she needs to go through it, spend 10 minutes, go through it together, and she can pick a few that she wants to donate or give to
Hmm.
a friend. And then it will feel nice and fresh and new. And I'm sure there's some in there that she didn't even know she had. So
Okay.
it's just about it's learning to flex the muscle of creating a home for every item in your house, storing things by category, and then having boundaries. So then once a boundary gets full, you take the time to go through it, get rid of a few things, and so that the items fit within the boundary again. And if you can learn to flex that muscle, you will be able to stay organized no matter how big, how small, how complicated this scenario is.
Okay. So that makes sense because I have a Costco 10 minutes down the street and I love to just grab,
Oh,
the box of sunscreens because
mhm.
summer's coming. But so you recommend we have a certain amount. What is your idea there?
Well, there's no perfect amount for anyone, right? So it's
Yeah.
like maybe if you have like a super big house and you need to have sunscreen multiple places where you use it,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you need to have one by the pool and one by the front door before you
Sure.
go out to play in the yard and one by the back door before you get in the car
Yeah.
to go to the park, like that's okay. Keep things where you use them and where you're realistically going to use them. But when
Okay.
it comes to back stock, shop
Mm-hmm.
your own stock before you make your list, before you go shopping. Like
Yes.
For me, I never go grocery shopping, or I try to never go grocery shopping until I first have made my list, and then I check my own back stock. Because sometimes my brain is saying we're out of olive oil. I go look, we have 4 bottles. What was I thinking? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I we have too much that we have to keep in our brains all the time. We can't expect
Yeah.
ourselves to be computers and remember everything. So that's
Yeah.
why shop your own stock. So,
Okay.
before I go buy sunscreen this summer, I will go take stock of what I have underneath my sink. We keep some by the back door, and I keep some in my bag that I like to take to the pool because I was swimming lots of
Yeah.
laps when I was pregnant. I will look at all of
Oh.
those, see how much I have, look at the expiration dates. If it'll last through the summer and I feel like I'm in a good place, I'm not going to buy anymore. If they've expired and I
Mhm.
feel like I need one or two, I'll buy a couple. The other thing is, like, everything's so accessible these days, right? So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not it's not like, we're playing Oregon Trail, right? And you like buy
Or
everything you need.
COVID.
And
It was like
it's not like
COVID
COVID.
times. There's no
You're
shortages.
right. Exactly. And so, I mean, everyone got into stockpiling mode because we had
Yeah,
to.
we
And I
did.
totally understand that. And we're coming out of that now. And
Mhm.
and I'm seeing a lot of like habits needing to change, people
Mm.
wanting to change their habits, but also a lot
Yeah.
of guilt that people stockpiled the stuff that then ended up going bad. A lot of it ended up expiring.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think you have to just chalk it up to like it was a time and a place. You did what you had to do. You're in survival mode,
Yeah.
and let it go and move forward with new habits. So check your own stock. Same goes with for everything, right? Like
Mhm.
shampoo, it goes for even for clothes for your kids, right? Like if
Yeah.
it's okay, it's
Yeah.
the summer, they need new swimsuits. Well, maybe take the time if you have it to go look through their
Mhm.
drawers, see how many
Yeah.
swimsuits they have that currently fit them. Maybe they should try them on, check for
Yeah.
holes, check for
Yeah.
wear, all that kind of stuff, and be like, okay, actually they each have like 4 that work. Let's see what's our ideal number of how many that they need.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll only buy one. But if you hadn't done that, you may have gone and bought 3 or 4 on sale, and then now you have 10 swimsuits and nowhere
Yeah.
to put them, and then you're frustrated. So
Yeah.
um there's just lots of, it's easy to overbuy because we're all running around, and places like
Mhm.
Costco make it super easy.
Yeah.
And I recently let go of my Costco membership because I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't have anywhere to store all this stuff. Like,
It's a
and I don't go
lot.
through stuff that fast. So
Mhm.
I've
Yep.
let go of that. I let go of my Thrive membership because,
Yeah.
I just didn't need a lot of it. And then things were going bad.
Mhm.
And I would
Mhm.
rather have less things, and then we can get something on Amazon, or I can run to Target in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
Lucky.
don't need to have that prepper mentality anymore because it's
Yeah.
it's it's just stressful, and it's more stuff to,
It's overwhelming.
there's a theory that like our brains are so incredible, and
Mhm.
subconsciously we categorize and count, we know every single item that we own. Like, some people
Jeez.
think that, right? Like
I think so.
every
Yeah.
hairband, every bobby pin, every pair of
Jeez.
earrings, and it's a lot, and it's always being categorized in your brain and like sorted through.
Yeah.
And so it's like the less you own, the less
Mhm.
taking up space in your brain.
Yeah.
And that it's the same for if you have a storage unit full of stuff. If you have 4
Yeah.
storage units full
Yeah.
of stuff, if you have a trunk of your car full of stuff, and so it's taking up
Yeah.
space in our brain. And in my opinion, I feel like I have a limited amount of time on earth, and I would
Mhm.
rather spend my time doing things I enjoy and not just categorizing all of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
canned goods in my pantry. And if that's what you want to do, it's not a judgment of people. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for everything.
Sure.
And but yeah, it's just like you don't need it. And we spend so much money on things that we feel like we need,
Mhm.
and then there's the guilt
Yeah.
of, oh, I spent all this money on this, but I never used it. And then it's just like this endless cycle, and I'm like, let's break the cycle. Let's move on with our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. I think you're gonna be in business for a while. You're gonna have all these pandemic recovering hoarders. I mean, it was like the Depression era. I feel like so
It
many
was.
grandparents and great grandparents had that mentality. Now it's like
Hmm.
my husband and I were joking about that. Like the pandemic's gonna have this group
Yeah.
of people our age maybe coming out that you'll have to help.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. But
I love
everything
that.
is so accessible, and then everything is sold, it's so hard. You go
Yeah.
to Costco and like you have to buy a 2-pack or a 4-pack or a 12
Yeah.
pack. Like
You might not need
everything is
it.
sold in mass.
Yeah.
And it's often a much better deal to buy things in bulk.
Sure.
And so we trick ourselves into trying to be like responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that everyone is always just doing their best, always. So there's like no judgment here that if it's like, oh, I accidentally bought, you know, 20 laundry detergents. Sure, we're just human. We're just trying to do our best. But I
Uh,
think that a little bit of preparation, a little bit of planning, and a little bit of
oh,
like taking the time to shop your own stock, think through what you
mm,
actually need,
yeah.
and holding off before you buy too many things can go such a long way and help us just be like a lot happier ultimately because we have less to deal with.
100%. I love it. And Juliana, I'm sorry. Do you have a superpower you would like to share with us today? I
Oh
forgot to ask you.
my God. Well, hold on. Will you answer that first? What's your superpower?
Oh, connecting with others and finding what they're wanting from their heart. So sometimes I can see it before they can see it. So I help them realize it.
That's
That's my
really
superpower.
cool. That's amazing. What's my
Love
superpower?
that.
You know, with regard to organizing, I think, because that's what we're talking about. I
I
think
think you
it's, I
have.
kind of know what a space wants to be. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll walk into a space and everyone's like, oh, the layout's awful. It's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And almost like, I kind of believe it's a little woo woo, but whatever. I kind of believe that like homes have a spirit. Like they're like, my
Mm-hmm.
home is over 100 years old. And like, I
Oh,
think of my
wow.
home as like a person, right?
Yeah.
And like I take care of her, she takes care of me and my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think you can walk into a kitchen and there's an ideal place for things to live where it
Mm-hmm.
feels just intuitive. And like
Yeah.
a friend comes over and they don't have to ask where your water glasses are. They just open the cabinet and they're like, oh,
That's where that
yeah, they're
sounds.
right
Yeah.
there. Right? Like there's just like a way that your home where things want to be. And sometimes I walk into a space that other people feel stumped by and they're like, I've never been able to
Mm-hmm.
figure it out. And then I kind of just like am quiet and I sort of consider the space and I'm like, okay, actually, I think this wants to be here, and this wants to be here, and this wants to be here, and then all it kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it comes from or how I do it,
Yeah.
but it's fun and it's
Yeah.
really intuitive. And then people are like, "Oh, yeah, this works so much better for me now." So
Yeah.
maybe that's it. I don't know. I've never thought about
I love that. I
it.
think that's powerful. That's amazing. You're helping so many people. So I love that. And where can our listeners find you?
Oh, absolutely. So a few different places. We have our website, which is spacecamporganizing.com, and we have a blog on there. And I write articles almost every week. So there's lots of
Oh,
things to look through and lots of tips on there.
awesome.
We have our Instagram. So my personal Instagram is Juliana_Strickland, where it's a little
Hmm.
bit of a mix of organizing, being a
Hmm.
mom, cooking,
Great.
crafting, gardening, stuff like that. And then Make Better Space is our organizing Instagram,
Oh,
where that's a little bit more organizing focused and
mm,
shows what our team is doing daily,
okay.
organizing tips, before and afters of spaces, all
Great.
that kind of stuff. And then, it goes on and on, Pinterest, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. But you can always reach out if you need
Amazing.
anything.
Yeah.
And we also have an organizing course. So we
Okay.
organize in person in Los Angeles. And
Mm,
occasionally we will travel to jobs, but often I will
yeah.
just try to recommend someone local because it's a little more cost effective for people.
Yeah.
But we created a course a few years ago to teach people how to think like we think when we're organizing. And I use the course to train my team members. And we also use it to, if there's a client that is on the fence about wanting people in their
Yeah.
home or maybe doesn't live locally, I'll be like,
Hmm.
this is exactly what you need because it's 7 lessons taught by me, workshop, there's worksheets, there's journal
Mm,
entries, there's shopping lists, everything you would need to be able to teach yourself to create systems, to get organized, to be flexible with it, and to really change how you think about being tidy moving forward. So we have that on our website as
oh.
well.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I can
Yeah.
link your website in the show notes too. So,
Oh, perfect.
yeah. And I have to ask you, where did you get the name Space Camp? I love it.
Okay, so I was organizing just under my own name because it
Yeah.
happened really naturally. And just,
Hmm. Yeah.
Juliana the organizer, whatever,
Yeah.
my friend Juliana who helps clean out your kitchen.
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, I want a name, but I so many of the good names were already taken. And
Hmm.
I kept searching different things, and I was like, oh, there's an organizer in England with that, or there's an organizer in New Jersey with that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want something that feels kind of witty and fun and like a
Hmm.
little eccentric. And I
Yeah.
was where all good ideas come from. I was in the bath. And then all of a sudden I was like, it was actually so funny. I had been brainstorming and then I said space camp. And at the same time, my husband runs and he says space cadets. And I was like, and then we both said, yours is better.
You're like so
And
close.
I know,
Cute.
but like it was like the same wavelength. It was amazing.
Wow.
And I was
That's
like, Space
cool.
Camp, that's it. And it's so funny because people either get it or they don't get it. Like so many people,
Yeah.
we have our Space Camp shirts that we wear all around
Oh,
LA. And
cool.
people are like, oh, I always wanted to go. And then I'll be like, oh, that's actually a home organizing company. And they'll be like, well, anyway, when I was 10, I really wanted to go to Space Camp. And then you just like let them tell you their Space Camp story. And then you move
Yeah.
on. But then some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, that's great. I like that. And
Love
they think it's
it.
funny. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're my people.
Yeah.
Let's organize. So
It's wonderful. It fits your
thank you.
personality perfectly. I love it.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Also, when I got a cease and desist from Real Space Camp, I was like, I made it. We're here. It's okay. We got it worked out. I think it wasn't a big deal. I think they do that to anyone who has Space Camp, but I was like, wow, I'm on their radar and I feel really
yeah.
special. So
You've been seen. That's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much
mm-hmm.
for being here. I'm
Of
so
course.
honored to have you as a guest, and you have shared so many amazing tips. I've been taking notes and I'm ready with my masking tape and my
I can't wait.
tools. I'm ready
Send
to
me a
go.
picture.
Okay.
If you ever need anything, please reach out. It's been such a pleasure. Yours, like.
Thank you so much, Juliana.
Right.
Thanks so much for following along with us on our Heart to Heart Parents podcast journey. I'm Carrie, and I am here to ask you for a quick favor. If you've enjoyed today's episode, would you be sure to review us, rate us, and give us a follow on any platform that you're using to listen to this podcast. Also, we love when you share it with a friend. That's super helpful. One other thing we would love is if you would love to contact and reach out with us. We now have an email. It's info@hearttoheartlife.com. Have a great week.